Welcome back to the Kosi Arsenal channel. My name is Kosi. Welcome back to a brand new video. We have some big breaking story on Kingsley Coman. Arsenal are in talks with Kingsley Coman to try and sign him this summer, and a deal is believed to be possible with both parties in constant talks, and positive talks are already underway. What does this deal really mean to the Nico Williams deal? We are hearing a lot of trouble on the Nico Williams deal. Bilbao want to extend Nico Williams, this and that. Could Arsenal be looking somewhere else? It's a good market opportunity. Kingsley Coman is just 28. His market value is around 35. Arsenal looking at that deal and going, if we get him for less than 35 million euros, that is a very good deal for a player that has more to offer for the next maybe 4 years, maybe 5 years. You can have him as part of your setup. And of course, he's proven he's a real gem of a talent. But of course, I want your thoughts on Kingsley Coman. Kingsley Coman or Nico Williams? Let's get into the comment box below. Personally, of course, we'll be diving into both players' profiles, what each one brings to Arsenal, and why maybe the Kingsley Coman deal makes more sense financially, but the Nico Williams deal makes more sense in terms of footballing terms. But we'll talk about all that. Let's get into the story. So Florian Plettenberg from the Bild in German and Sky Sports as well says that there is contact between Arsenal and Kingsley Coman's management, with both sides in ongoing communication. Arsenal are aware that Saudi Arabia is a very, very appealing option for Coman, but they have expressed their interest and it is strong. Coman and Bayern are expected to part ways this summer. The situation is positive with open dialogue between all parties. Coman will be replaced at Bayern Munich. That is the information we are getting from Sky Sports German main reporter Florian Plettenberg. Now, Florian Plettenberg really covers a lot of Bayern and a lot of Borussia Dortmund. He really covers a lot of German football, honestly. I don't want to discredit him, but when it comes to Bayern stories, I can trust him. It's the way I trust Christian Falk when it comes to German stories. I just trust those two. Sky Sports Germany, Florian Plettenberg, and Christian Falk. I really love them. But this story comes at a time where Arsenal are trying to work early on their deals. We're trying to work early on Gyökeres. We're trying to work early on Zubi. We're trying to work early on the Nico Williams deal. And it shows you that Arsenal and Mikel Arteta at this time focused and they're determined to go and make this summer count. And we are not lining up for any disappointments, right? The Nico Williams deal, for me, sounds like, and it looks like, the Benzema deal, right? That deal that you're chasing every single summer, and eventually you never get the player. These days, with Saudi Arabia around Al Nassr, Al Ittihad, you wait until 25, the guy is 25, he signs for Al Nassr, and you never get the deal done. So I think what Arsenal are trying to do here, they're trying to make sure that they are swimming in safe waters. We're trying to make sure that we are not going to get disappointed. If we don't get Nico Williams, well and good. Are we looking at Sané? Can we start talks with Leroy Sané's front as well? Can we start talks with Kingsley Coman? Can we start talks with other players? Because the first thing I want to say is this is not a priority deal, right? This is not a priority deal. Nowhere has it been said that Arsenal are looking at Kingsley Coman as a priority. No way. So the priority still remains Nico Williams. But according to what I've seen, Arsenal just don't want to get disappointed. Arsenal don't want to wait a whole summer for a player who's never going to arrive. And that is the effect of Andre Bata. That is the effect of a very good sporting director. And if you remember, when we were talking about Bata and his arrival at Arsenal last month, basically, we were talking about what is the change that we are going to see with Andre Bata coming in. What are the fundamental changes that we are going to see with a new sporting director? And one of the things that he has brought at Arsenal already is going for targets that are achievable and going for targets that are meaningful. I think Gyökeres is a better target than Šeško. There is real value for money, a player in his prime, and so on. And he has said, if we can't get John Garcia, let's look at other targets. It's not this Mikel Arteta and Edu strategy of looking at one player and then by the end of the summer, they signed Raheem Sterling. I mean, it was so embarrassing what we did last summer. We looked at Nico Williams, we looked at Bakayoko, we looked at a couple of wingers, and we ended up with Raheem Sterling, who's literally not helped the squad this campaign. So I think this is the work of Andre Bata. He's looking at different market opportunities, looking at different options, and he's telling Mikel, if you don't get Nico Williams, you have to have options. What is the other option? And Mikel says, I love Kingsley Coman. I love Leroy Sané as well. And Arsenal have open talks with Coman, and Arsenal have open talks with Leroy Sané as well. So that tells you, Nico doesn't come, it's okay. Arsenal will look at at another outlet. So why Kingsley Coman? Why Kingsley Coman? Because that's a very big question that I asked myself when I saw this story. Why are we looking at Kingsley Coman? There's so many players out there that we could look at. Why this guy? Because when you look at his last 10 years at Bayern, nothing impressive for me. Nothing. Like, he's a talent, and we'll talk about him as a player. He's a talent, like generational talent. But in terms of output, guys, I have not seen anything that has convinced me about Kingsley Coman. If you look at your screen right now, this season, 23 games, 4 goals, 4 assists. Last season, 17 games, 3 goals, 3 assists. The season before that, 24 games, 8 goals, 5 assists. Like, these are mediocre performances in the German Bundesliga. And that's why I'm not impressed with Kingsley Coman. Like, these are mediocre performances. These are mediocre stats in the German Bundesliga. Now, could he maybe move to a club like Arsenal and explode? Possibly. But I think Bayern is one of those teams that play in a freer... freer is a one? Like, they are more free to do whatever players want, especially in the final third, as compared to this Arsenal team that is so drilled. If you can't hit decent numbers at Bayern, how are we convinced that you're going to hit decent numbers at Arsenal? That is the first thing I'm concerned about. So I'm not looking at a player who is recording 10 assists, 10 assists, 5 goals, or 15 goals, 10 assists. That's not the caliber we're talking about. We're talking about a guy that gets his 6 assists, 5 assists, 7 assists. So why are we going in for him? The first thing I've looked at is his market value on the transfer market website. And yeah, it makes sense. He's got a contract that runs down in 2027, but he's already agreed with Bayern that it is time to part ways. And that tells you one sweet thing. He's gonna go on a cheap deal. So Bayern are one of those clubs that literally don't stand in the way of a player. If they want you out, they want you out. And I think Kingsley Coman, Leroy Sané, these are players that Bayern want out. Actually, if you read that article very well, from Florian Plettenberg, it says they will replace him. So it's already in the pipeline that Kingsley Coman leaves, and he's gonna be replaced. And if you remember last summer, Bayern were very, very hot on the heels of Desire Doué, who ended up at PSG. He's devastating these days. He's so good. But Bayern wanted Desire Doué, and maybe if they got Desire Doué last summer, maybe Kingsley Coman is not even a Bayern player right now. It's as simple as that. And we have heard of interest in Nico Williams from Bayern Munich, reported by the same source, and also Christian Falk as well. They've been reporting that Nico Williams is on the radar for Bayern, but is closer to joining Arsenal than joining Bayern. So the first thing I think that Andre Bata is looking at is, how do I rebuild this Arsenal squad? How do I help this Arsenal squad get to the levels that they want to get to without exploding 400 or without burning 500 million? Because if you're going to go for just creme de la creme, you're gonna be spending 500 million. You're gonna spend 100 on Isak, or 150. You're gonna spend 100 on Rafael Leao. You're gonna spend like 60 million euros on Zubimendi, and then before you know it, you've burned through 300 million. So Bata, and this is something we talked about with you guys on the channel. He's so good at looking at market opportunities, especially players in their prime, and players in their prime. They have something to prove, but things are not going so well. Antoine Griezmann, Luis Suarez, David Villa, all those signings that we've been talking about for Atletico Madrid. It seems it's the same thing he's trying to do. And Kingsley Coman makes a lot of sense if Mikel Arteta agrees to this one. He's 28. He can play until 32. He's going to give you massive quality. 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Those are 5 years at the top, right? 5 or 4 years at the top for a player that are going to sign for like 20 or 25 million euros. He's earning about 17 million euros right now. We can raise it probably to around 20 million euros and everything falls into place. So that's the first thing, the reason I'm looking at why Arsenal are going for Kingsley Coman. The other reason as to why we're going for him, I think, is the phase in which Arsenal are going. And remember, I've talked about profiles a lot on this channel when it comes to phase 5. I think phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 were about Mikel Arteta trying to sign players that fit into what he wanted to do. Obviously, you had Gabriel and Partey strengthening our spine, coming in as the first signings. But then after that, quickly, you had Benjamin White coming in, Martin Odegaard, and then, the likes of Declan Rice. And that, those signings, they show you that Mikel really wanted control. Now, the profiles that we're looking for are profiles that are going to go and make us win. As simple as that, right? And that is not a simple profile. That is not any guy like Simon Adingra or Yankuba Minte. They are good, they're brilliant, but do they go and make you win, right away? Possibly not. And I think this is why this is important. They're looking at Sané. They're looking at Coman. They're looking at Dean Huyson. These profiles point to something. They point to a club that has graduated and has gone to that maximum, level. Because Coman is a top level player. Now, what are my worries about him? My worries about him is, first and foremost, I just look at his output and I'm like, you've been at Bayern for the last 10 years, but your output isn't that top. But again, players can explode. Like we've said, players can explode. Luis Suarez came in at ATM, won them the league. You have Antoine Griezmann coming back at ATM and being one of the best players in the Liga. So players can explode. Looking at the brighter side of the deal, first and foremost, I would take Kingsley Coman over so many players that we are looking at because it's a low risk deal. It's a low risk deal. Less money that you're giving to the player and less money that you're giving to Bayern. And of course, it's a deal that you can easily exit, right? There is no resale value right there, but also the price is low. If you look at what Arsenal have to pay, maybe 30 million euros or 28, 27 million euros, and then you compare that to what Nico is going to cost, to what Lookman is going to cost, to what all these other players are going to cost, you're like, it's a low risk deal and it makes some bit of sense. And of course, like I said, experience, a winner. He's literally won everything with Bayern, and Arsenal need that. But what happens to the Leroy Sané deal, and what happens to the Nico Williams deal? Right? The Leroy Sané deal for me is unaffected. Arsenal are looking for an attacking midfielder today, according to Ryan Taylor. Arsenal are looking at 2 midfielders, central midfielders, right? One is going to be Zubimendi, and then we're looking for another. And I think Leroy Sané is perfect for that role. This kind of evolution of players where, he's quick, he's explosive, but when he gets older, he kind of just slows down and settles into those positions where, pace isn't needed so much. Sané has been a winger with devastating pace at Schalke, at Manchester City, at Bayern. Maybe he could settle into that kind of creative role, that creative number 10 role, as he gets older. We've seen it with players like Andrea Pirlo, just going away from this rapid midfielder to settling down, inside the pivot and just dictating play. Maybe Sané can do that. And if Arsenal can get Sané as part of our midfield, I would be in support of it, right? I would be absolutely in support of it. And then Kingsley Coman, you get Kingsley Coman as part of your attack. I don't think Arsenal need 1 winger for me. I think we need 2. I think if you get Nico and you get Kingsley Coman, it makes more sense. There is cover there, there is competition, and there's real quality. As Arsenal go into a season, next season, where we might have to win maybe a double or even a treble if injuries don't hit and VAR doesn't get on our nerves. Now, the Nico Williams story gives me serious concerns, right? Because if you're going for Kingsley Coman, it's one or two. He's either coming in as a backup to Nico Williams, but why would he want to come as a backup to Nico Williams and not get a big, bag full of hundreds of thousands of pounds in Saudi Arabia or dirhams, whatever their currency is? Why? Right? So maybe Arsenal looking at Kingsley Coman as a Leandro Trossard. Trossard is getting older, but we've got some good years out of Trossard. So maybe they're looking at Kingsley Coman and they're like, we get Kingsley Coman, we replace Trossard, everything works out. It's a win-win situation. So I won't be surprised if he comes in as a direct replacement to Nico, or he comes in as a backup to Nico Williams. Either way, it's not a bad deal. 25 to 35 million euros. That's not a bad deal. The wages, Arsenal can negotiate with that. Andrea Bata understands that better. He comes in with experience. We'll talk much about him. We'll compare him to the players we have and other players that we are linked with. But I don't think it's a bad player, right? I don't think it's a bad player. And you see, the list of wingers that we've been talking about is increasing every single day. So maybe Arsenal are really serious.